Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today when we talk about implementing an internship course, specifically here at AUM. With us today, we have 4 members of our faculty who have been engaged in offering internship opportunities to their students for some time. We keep track of all of the students here at the EEC that have been involved in internships, and we picked you guys specifically to be involved in this because of the numbers of students that have been involved in internships within your courses. I'll start with Dr. Christine Harrington. She's the Associate Dean, College of Business. She'll be with us today. Then we have Dr. Scott Lane. He's a Director and Associate Professor, School of Accountancy, and also with the College of Business. And we have Dr. Gilbert Duenes, Professor in our Curriculum Instruction and Technology Department, College of Education. And then we have Dr. Hillary Gamble, who's an Assistant Professor in Communications and Theater with our College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences College. That's right. All right, so the 4 of you are a wealth of knowledge. And so today what we'll do is I'll just kind of ask some questions, and then I invite our guests to come in to hear you speak, to ask you questions as well, and get your feedback on how you guys are so successful in offering these opportunities to students. Dr. Harrington, I will start with you first, since you're the top of the Brady Bunch picture. Can you please just tell us a little bit about your role as it applies to internships here on campus?
Sure. I actually tried to reduce my role as it applies to internships. I have been Associate Dean for the College of Business for 1 year, and my the way that internships worked in the College of Business prior to my arrival is it was very centralized. It was everything went through the Associate Dean. And there were reasons for that, because we have academic criteria. We ask that students have at least a 2.75 GPA and have earned 60 credit hours. And some disciplines even have more strict criteria to do an internship. And so the Associate Dean served a role as a clearinghouse for opportunities for internships, as well as a vetting office to vet the academic eligibility. And so prior to my arrival, students had to go find an academic advisor or somebody to sponsor, if you will, a faculty member to be the instructor, the course instructor for the internship course. And so, and I believe right now we're talking about the internship course and not necessarily only an internship, because that has to be, the student has to come to us with an internship to take an internship course. And so a student would have to find some faculty member to agree to be the course instructor, and then the Associate Dean would send out an evaluation at the end of the semester to the employer to collect some information that was used for accreditation purposes. So that was the role prior to my arrival. And what I've done is I've decentralized it. There is no need for me to be the bottleneck for students, and I wanted to make it as easy as possible for students to get an internship. And so we have good folks in the College of Business who are now the coordinators for the disciplines, including Dr. Lane, who has always been taking the role as the instructor for at least the undergraduate internship course. So we have for each discipline within the College of Business, one person, a go-to person. And so I still am involved in internships, but I am more the marketer of internships. Okay. I heavily promote them to students. I am a first stop for students who don't know any better or just curious about internships, because I'm the marketer. So they come to me first. And I also send out, when I receive them, opportunities for internships to students. So that's my current role, is I basically promote them, and I am a resource for students who would have questions about internships, and I send them on their way to where they need to go.
Which is then Dr. Lane. So Dr. Lane, you can go ahead and go next.
We happen to be our own kind of little ecosystem in accounting. We have a lot of networks with the CPA firms and state agencies. So we have two major career events. We have a Meet the Firms event in September. We have a government accounting networking event in October. We have usually 12 CPA firms come on campus and 19 government agencies last October. So we just try to mix and match with the students as far as that goes. And just provide the biggest piece we do on the other side is support. We have mock interview days, we have resume workshops, we have a clothing closet that we've collected from a lot of CPAs, trying to get them at least into that interview stage in a decent outfit. And then we launch them off. When they come back from their internship, they come back and do a presentation. And usually that's a really good experience for them. We invite their sponsor from the firm. They come back and everybody, it's usually pretty good. About 90% of our kids wind up getting offers from the organization they interned with. And, it's pretty good experience. I do the undergrad accounting program. I probably do about 12, maybe a year. Rhonda C. is our MAC advisor, Masters of Accountancy. She probably does another 8 that we do. We probably do almost again that many non-credit internships that the students, a lot of times we have students that'll do one as an undergrad and they'll do another one in the MAC program. And they're not necessarily doing the second one for credit. They're just doing, they're doing these experiences. So we're kind of aware of them and supportive of them, but we're not managing it that way. So, but it's kind of the pathway to a job in our field, and it works really well for us.
Thank you very much. The next person on the Brady Bunch wheel is Dr. Gamble. Sorry.
About to get some water, but so yeah, I recently took over doing the internships for the communication part of our department. Val Winkleman still does the theater internships, but I felt like after a few years of working here, I had students coming to me all the time for internships, and sort of the process at that point in time was they would have to find an internship themselves and get the internship, and only then were we like helping them to just basically sign up for the internship credit so that they could get credit. And at the end, they would do like a little report about their internship, but that was kind of all we were doing. And I felt like a lot of my students, they needed a little bit more support than that. And I had already created some connections in the community with some of the local TV stations, some of the PR firms, things like that. So I just kind of made a list and started trying to put students with those people when they were interested in internship and qualified for one. So yeah, I'm kind of the one-stop shop for communication students when it comes to internships.
That's awesome. All right, Dr. Duenas, you're up. What's your role?
Well, it's from the very beginning. I work with our method students during their 3rd and 4th year, leading up to the internship. I am their advocate. I'm actually going to be the university supervisor, on average 10 to 12 interns per year, fall and semester. I'm part of the process of their school selection being made, so we have a good match. I'm also going to be talking with school administrators to make certain that the environment is appropriate for our intern. That's very, very important. Obviously, the umbrella that we wear is preparing our future educators. And so we stay in contact with our stakeholders throughout the school year. And so we go out into the field. That's one thing that we all believe in, is that the internship is a collaborative effort between the title as university supervisor, the cooperating teacher, the school principal, the student, the intern. And so we have upfront meetings, actual instructional planning meetings, so that we have a success story. And so I stay involved. I go out to do school visits, and I make it a point to talk with the cooperating teacher, the mentor teacher as well. Additionally, I'm part of the assessment team. So we assess the student's performance. And we make it a point to debrief the cooperating teacher, then the student, and ultimately the school leaders will ask us questions. Would you hire this student? That's the $1 million question. And we want to be able to say yes.
Well, thank you very much. All right, so a couple of you have already kind of talked about how you've gotten resources or how you've come about finding internships, but I want some more detail on how do you find internships for your students, and what resources have you turned to find additional opportunities for them? Hillary, if we could start with you, since you kind of touched on it the most.
So I was kind of handed a couple of internships from the television stations to people who worked there that I knew. But I definitely had to go out and kind of look for some more internships. I started that search with the Google. So, I started where the students usually start when they're looking for internships. But after that, I really just started reaching out to businesses in the area that I thought would be appropriate places for our students to get the experiences they need, or places that they might want to work when they graduate. And so a lot of my partnerships with those businesses have been pretty good, because we keep up with each other throughout the year, and every semester I just send them an email or I give them a call and ask them, like, hey, are you looking for another intern this semester? I might have a student who would be interested. I'm just wondering if you guys are welcoming, or if you don't really have anything for someone right now. And yeah, so I just keep those up. If I have a student who just doesn't really fit any of those opportunities, then I'll do an sort of individualized search for that student. Maybe they're looking for something specific that I can't provide with my current list of employers, but most of the time they're happy to choose from people that we work with frequently.
Definitely maintaining that relationship and keeping a good relationship with your employers is going to be key to having more opportunities as you move forward.
Like making the process for them easier, definitely taking their feedback, using the feedback that they give you. Like, yeah, it's good to assess our students and their performance in those internships, but it's also good to hear from the employer just regarding the process.
Thank you. Dr. Lane, can we go to you next?
Sure. We have generally a large group of CPA firms and agencies, a lot of whom are coming back. There are alumni coming back looking for new graduate students or new graduating students. All of our internships are paid, so that weeds out stuff that might not be appropriate. If it's somebody we haven't worked with before, this summer I have a student out at a CPA firm. It's a small CPA firm that is over on Atlanta Highway. We hadn't worked with them before. I went over and talked to them, and we just make sure that it's appropriate. They're going to be doing appropriate work, but most of the time the paying thing usually resolves those issues, because a lot of times they're paying relatively decent money and they're not they're not having them just file, or we don't have to worry about them doing cold calls or anything like that. They're usually pretty appropriate accounting tasks. But the vast majority, 9 out of 10, are with our regular suspect CPA firms or state agencies. So that helps us a lot. And those are pretty repetitive. The state agency thing has exploded in the last couple of years. They're all looking for accountants.
It's the new field to be in.
Well, it's always been a good field. It's just the pool of kids that want to be accountants now has dropped, and that's kind of a national thing. So it's good if you're in it, but it's hard. We don't have enough students.
Dr. Harrington, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, and I think my colleagues are doing it right. Is that's how to answer your question. Really, it's those relationships that create that pipeline. It's that, you take a student who is learning about the field in the first place, and those people don't have connections. Oftentimes, especially our constituency, they just don't know how to go about it. And to have that bridge that is, within a discipline is the right way to go. And I can tell you that by observing the success of Dr. Lane and his department, because they do have those established relationships, and they do, as a matter of fact, have the most students who have internships in the College of Business. And it sounds like Dr. Gamble is also extremely successful with having her relationships. And I can also say from when I was the student, is that if it weren't for those established relationships, I probably would not have had that wonderful opportunity for an internship. So to have it down to the discipline level, I think is probably the most successful model, because you have to have those relationships, and those relationships are human relationships. That's Dr. Gamble knowing people at these firms, and that's Dr. Lane forging relationships or knowing people at these firms. Me as an administrator can do what I can, with everything else I had to do.
Facilitate.
Right. I try to direct traffic, but I'm not the one to go and forge those relationships. I just wanted to make that comment that I think that model is the successful model.
Gilbert, who is it for you guys over at the College of Ed that helps build those relationships with the employers?
My favorite word is teamwork. It's all of us. It's all of us, because that's the right answer. All of us, through our methods courses, are going out into schools across the state of Alabama. It's all of us who make those first person observations and connections. School administrators, with specialists, with cooperating teachers. It's all of us who are meeting with our stakeholders twice a year. It's all of us who are collecting that data that gives us insight into what we're doing well and what we're not doing well. And that, 30 years Air Force taught me that. There's no I in we. It's a team effort. And so I want to, I give out a shout out to all of my colleagues, across this campus who take the internship as a serious endeavor, because we are preparing our future. And that's the whole essence of an internship. I probably got ahead of one of your questions.
You're fine. You've already leaded us in to, in your experience, why is it so important for students to have an internship? And so you can kind of just go a little bit further with that there. And then I think we'll go to Dr. Lane next.
My mother taught me this, and I don't think it's specific to her. Experience is something you get after you need it. The only way to get experience is by experience, being, in our case, in the classroom. interacting with parents, parent-teacher meetings, experiential learning. As a patient, I have sought the expertise of a doctor. As a household owner, I turn to the expertise of an electrician and so forth. Experiential learning. I don't want just book learning. I will ask for the credentials of that person. And that's what experience does. Experience gives me that first person. All of us as professionals put immense value on first person testimony, first person experience. That's why the internship is so important. I rest my case.
Good case it is. Go ahead, Scott.
I'd be a supportive witness for that. The students going out in the internships come back and we have them do a presentation. I've done discussion boards with students before and just kind of the things that they'll say. I didn't understand why you were doing the things you were doing. Now I understand why the program is set up to. I didn't understand that I needed to know this. I didn't understand I had to show up every day and be ready to work for 8 hours. I didn't understand I needed to leave my phone at home. I didn't understand, and it really does. We've made curricular changes because of stuff that comes back from the firms. The Excel course that we put in, for example, students were saying they were proficient in Excel, meaning they knew how to open Excel. They weren't good at it. And so we put a course in, came back, all the employers are very, very happy with the students that have been through that course. So there's this stuff we get feedback from the firms and the students get a perspective that usually opens their eyes to, oh, okay. One of the best ones, I thought I was the smartest student here, and then I realized when I went out there, everybody's smart. And okay, wake up call accepted. It's that helps us a lot, and they bring that back. We have a critical mass enough of them doing internships when they come back in the classroom and talk about this stuff that it helps push the wheel forward on the rest of them. That okay, I need to be serious about this. This is a career path. So. It works on multiple levels.
Christine or Hillary, you guys have anything you want to add?
Go ahead, Hillary.
I mean, like, I don't know if because I had to take that call. I don't know if anybody's already said it, but definitely internships. I mean, they help people get jobs. A lot of times my students get hired by the people they took an internship with. But yeah, it brings them, it helps them understand whether or not this is actually something that they want to do. My students have a lot of different options when they graduate of what kind of jobs that they could do. The skills are pretty transferable for a lot of different career paths. And getting an internship in helps them kind of test out what it is that they want to do and start to develop those skills even more so that they'll have a better chance of getting a job when they graduate.
One good point on that, we get a lot of students that go out and do an internship in auditing or tax, for instance. And we consider it a successful internship if they decide they don't want to do tax. They don't want to stay in auditing. So go in and do you want to do this all the time? And that for some of them, they'll come back and they say, tax is now my favorite thing. Okay, I don't understand that, but yeah, getting that hands-on helps them decide what they want to do too. And sometimes what they don't want to do. So
it's a great point. You have to experience it to know if you like it or don't. Christine, did you have anything?
I just wanted to, I think somebody touched on this. It lights a fire under the student who, you take the student who isn't your top student and for whatever reason, work ethic, what have you. And I think Scott touched on this, is that they come back and they see the value of what you're asking them to do. And I think that is huge, especially for many of our students. I'd like to see all of our students, especially in the College of Business, do internships, just for that reason.
like to add to that, I think the act of going out into the workforce and doing that internship brings it to like a reality, like, okay, I actually am going to graduate at some point and I'm going to have to actually have a career, and this is going to be what it's like. It's almost like seeing a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel for some students, that help motivate them towards that job that is just waiting for them.
I remember a discussion. I got my PhD at the University of Kentucky, and at that point, the dean wanted to put a internship requirement in and the faculty were arguing that there were students that weren't ready for internships or weren't appropriate for internships. And the dean was kind of like, you're going to give them a degree, but you don't want to send them out on an internship. I think we have bigger problems than, and that was part of the problem, was the match of how to match them up with appropriate internships in situations that they would succeed. But yeah, the faculty were very afraid of sending it. Well, if we're going to give them a degree, we probably need to at some point put them out in the field and see how they do. They probably need it more than the kids that are ready for internships.
Exactly.
So.
Well, somebody, I think it was Gilbert, started talking about process a little bit and assessment. I think Hillary did it as well. That's the kind of next thing I want to talk about, so that if a new faculty member is interested in having an internship course, like what is it they would have to kind of to do? What would be the process to get that student from finding an internship, all the way through to a successful internship, and how do we assess that it was successful? Gilbert, I'll start with you again, if you don't mind.
I'm going to start with an M word. No, not motivated, although it's synonymous. And that is mentorship. Because that's who we are. And that's who everybody in the pipeline is. Mentoring in our case, mentoring our future educate. You gotta want to do that. In the morning when you're getting your cup of coffee or your bottle of water, whatever, you've got to want to be a champion for your interns. Gotta want to do that. Because your intern will turn to you, need you, question you. And you got to be there. You have to be willing to be there, and sometimes, my words, run interference. Mediate in terms of a difference of opinion. Understand the dynamic of the environment. We can't be there 24 hours a day. But I really like the word mentorship, because that entails so much of who we need to be for those who will shadow us. That's what the military taught me. That as I was going out the door, my number 2 shadowed me. Everywhere, minus the bathroom, everywhere I went, that person shadowed me. And when I walked away, and I didn't use the word intern, but that's what it was. Mentorship.
Excellent point. Definitely. Let's see. Hilly, you ready to talk about your process a little bit that you follow?
Yeah. Because I kind of inherited what Val was doing, Val Winkleman. She had basically like a guide that she would give students that sort of explained what the internship needed to look like, because she wasn't finding them their internships at the time. They had to find them themselves. And then it would explain what the students' responsibilities are when they do the internship, both for the employer and for us to receive credit. What their qualifications had to be, because we don't allow just any student to do an internship. They have to have a certain GPA. They have to have taken a certain number of communication required courses for their the path that they're taking, whether they're journalism or PR. So I think, you know, if you're trying to start an internship course, you really need to have a lot of those ideas written down somewhere where you can just kind of like sit down with the student and go over those things with them before you get started, so they sort of know all the expectations ahead of time. And then you also have to kind of follow them along, mentor them along the way. So during the semester, you know, you meet with them once or twice, make sure that everything's going well with the internship, ask them questions about what they're doing and that sort of thing. And then realize, like, what is it that's going to be a successful internship? Like, how do you determine that for your discipline, and figure out a way that you can assess that from both the student and the employer at the end of the internship, so that you know there needs to be any adjustments made, any communication between any of those parties, that sort of thing.
Do you guys have like a final assignment at the end of the internship that's due?
Yeah, they do a sort of like a journaling while they are doing the internship, and that plays into the report that they do at the end. It's a written report, as well as a sort of like evaluation of the internship and their employer.
So the College of Business, I know, has a fairly good process in place. Even before Christine had taken it over, that we had already had set learning objectives that we wanted to gain from the internship and such. Can you guys, either of you, Christine or Scott, kind of talk about that process for the rest of our folks' benefit?
Go ahead.
I'll start it off, give it to Scott. Is we standardize our process so that no matter what the major is in the College of Business, they're having more or less the same experience. And like Hillary, we have a set of, and Scott actually helped me develop this, is that this is an internship. We have college policy that is, I would like to eliminate or reduce of, you have to have some certain GPA and hours earned. I would rather have the sophomore doing an internship. Frankly, I don't think 60 hours is needed, but anyway, so we standardize our procedure. We ask the employer to sign I'm going to treat you right document. Okay. We're not going to, and so it's out in the open that the students are expected to work X hours, and we actually have their contact information, so we know we're sending a student out, and the student sends it back, or gets the employer to send it back to us, or the student sends it back to us. We kind of look it over. For instance, this summer, a student wanted to do an internship course, had an internship, and he gave me a supervisor with a Gmail account. And I said, no, honey, no. You give me where you work in. Okay, it should be at wherever you're working.com or .org or what have you. And so, the process is really, you just got to vet our process is you vet, and then like Hillary's process, ours is you meet with the student at the beginning of the semester, you meet with the student at midterm, and we did away with any paper or journaling. We basically, it's communicating, and at the end it's a presentation, unless the instructor wants to ask the student to do more. Those are our minimums. There is an evaluation that's standardized, and it's basically, there are learning objectives, but we're aiming for competencies, basic competencies in communication and problem solving and other competencies, the NACE competencies. And so the employer fills it out. So the process, if somebody wants to really do this course, just lay it out for the student. What we did is norm it. I took the best of what I could find from other colleges of business, and we used our own process, what Scott provided from his own experience, and what I gathered from our peers and aspirants, and normed it. Found a process that works for us, standardized it. And I think the thing is to have clear expectations between you the student and the employer. And have a way to give feedback. Not necessarily, and the student will get feedback, whether the student is asked to join the firm after the internship or not is feedback, right? And the student gets feedback doing the job, but you need the experience as feedback too. You know, it feeds back to your curriculum, possibly. It feeds back to your process. So that's where you get feedback from interacting with both the employer and the student through the presentation as well as the evaluation. That's all I had to say.
It's very thorough. Scott, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, at a prior institution, we used to do kind of a weekly journaling type of thing. And then at the end of the semester, it'd be a written paper on what I learned in my summer internship type of thing. I still have them do check-ins, just email check-in with me periodically. I usually know the sponsor at the firm. So if there's problems from their end, they'll usually call me. Very rarely. We don't have too many problems like that. The students will check in. They're usually pretty excited to tell me what they're doing or working on, whatever. And then at the end of the semester, we do a presentation day that we have them all come in, and they actually dread it and then they love it, because they come in and they talk about the firm and what they did and what they learned, and they're usually pretty excited about it at that point. And one of the pointy questions we asked them, they asked the supervisors, are what classes most prepared you for this, and what didn't you know going out that you should have known? And you know, and we try to pick up from that and get some feedback into our own processes and such like that. But the biggest part of it really is them coming back with the supervisor, doing a presentation. And again, 90% of our kids are getting job offers after the internship. So that's pretty much proof in the pudding as far as that goes. Christine helped a lot because she just streamlined the College of Business paperwork, and that's been nice. And automated the employer. The employer does a confidential survey for us. Again, usually pretty complimentary. And that's kind of when we'll try to get some feedback. If there's one that fails, we'll try to find out. We had one student, pretty good student, went out an internship, kind of didn't go well. And it turned out the student was very, very nervous and was constantly asking for clarification or questions of stuff they probably already knew, but they weren't sure. And they were driving the sponsor nuts, you know? So we had to kind of do some counseling with them and kind of like, look, you know, it's like, if you're wrong, they'll tell you, but you can't constantly be, you know, so we kind of look for those situations, but that was an unusual one. And again, not a bad student, but it was a wake-up call for him to have to do stuff on his own, which was surprising. So part of the reason we do this stuff.
You brought up just something that maybe have a thought, and I know I talked to Bethany from career development about this months ago now, but do you guys have anything, and this is to all of you, in place that is like an internship prep, you know, program or a little workshop or something that you put your students through prior to going to an internship?
Yeah, we do well, prior to them talking to the firms, we do a mock interview and a resume review. Typically their resume has got stuff from high school on it, and we have to clean that up. But we try to make sure that they're ready. We try to give them, we have a very active clubs. We give them some exposure to the firms at that point. We have speakers come in on a pretty regular basis. So they kind of have a sense of what they're going into. I usually talk to them when they come in to do the paperwork and just kind of walk them through what, I had a student in my office the other day, and he kind of just, he's looking at it from his sole perspective and not saying, look, you have to understand you're representing the school. You know, these people are bringing you in as an internship, not for you to get 3 credits, because they're hoping to hire you at the end of this. You know, if you're not interested in working for them, this is not probably appropriate, you know, and so we've redirected him into something different. You know, so that it's got to work for everybody, and it's an ecosystem. It's got to work for everybody. and they need to understand that too.
Gilbert, do you guys have anything in place to kind of get them prepped before they go?
Yeah, we do a couple of things. One, we've started to bring in pieces of the overall internship model into their methods courses. So they begin to gradually grow accustomed to the vocabulary. That's key. If you don't understand what's going on, it's difficult to teach. And so we're bringing in pieces of the internship teaching model into our methods courses. So that's one thing we're doing as well. We're also bringing in school administrators to meet firsthand with our method students. So they got that interchange as well, and get that first person understanding of what that principal is going to expect. And I recall one principal saying, and I'm going to paraphrase her, that you need to treat your internship as your business card, as your resume. And she would go on to say that I'm checking you out from the time you walk into school, because they're schools are under surveillance, and is able to make an assessment of that student. So we talk about those impressions as well. We also have, Zoom orientation sessions with our prospective interns, and we go through the litany from A to Z on professionalism, communication, attire, disposition. If the school begins at 8 o'clock and you show up at 7:55, we need to review, you see. We talk demographics. That's an important concept. Understanding diversity of the school. What is the mission statement? That's one of the first questions I ask my prospective interns. Ladies and gentlemen, can you tell me right now the mission statement of the school you're going to? What is their vision? That's the first question I ask my intern. And that's important because that mission statement is that's a foundation for the entire school's operation as well. And of course, we inform our prospective interns of what we use it's a state requirement for licensure, the Ed TPA, the Educator Teacher Performance Assessment. So beforehand, we do a deep dive into what that is all about to familiarize the student, the intern as well. So we do a lot of groundwork long before the student walks into the school. And that's important. I think, it's done across the university that, all of us take pride in, doing the groundwork to have our students succeed.
Thank you. Hillary, how about you guys? Do you do any prep for them?
Yeah, basically the same stuff, just relevant to our discipline. We'll invite people to come speak about what their job's like and what are the good things, what are the bad, what's the good, bad, and ugly, I have a lot of practicum type courses where they learn the skills that they would need in those jobs. And I talk to them about my own experience doing those jobs because I have professional experience doing those things before I became a professor. And then, whenever they come for an internship, when they choose one that they want to pursue, I just talk to them about, this is probably what you're going to be doing during this internship. Does that sound good to you? Is that what you're hoping for? That sort of thing, because I think a lot of them, they don't really know what they're getting themselves into at first, because, every internship is kind of different. And even like with our PR internships, you kind of would expect that those would be a little bit more consistent across the board, but it really depends on how big is this PR firm, what the person that's going to be guiding your internship at the PR firm, are they going to be doing the type of PR that you have been learning about or that you're interested in, or are they like mostly handling stuff that you aren't going to be pursuing later? You have to have those discussions with them beforehand, because otherwise they might get themselves signed up for something they don't really want to do.
Definitely preparing them for something that they're not planning on doing is important. So we have a lot of students that are non-traditional here at AUM. And, I know from personal experience, when I was a non-traditional student, finding an internship that fit my schedule or that fit my situation was kind of difficult. Whoever wants to take this one, what are some of the barriers that are along those lines have you seen, and then how have you kind of helped break that barrier down for the student? Go ahead, Christine.
Sorry, I couldn't get unmuted. I want to say that from communicating to the student should understand that a lot of students think an internship is full-time, and some of them are clearly, but for our perspective, if they want to combine it with an internship course, all we're asking is work in the fall or spring semester 9 hours per week. So communicating to the student that it's not a second full-time job, that you can benefit. So say the student is working full-time or 30 hours a week or full-time while attending classes, and the non-traditional student, just communicate to the student that this is not another full-time commitment. You can work this in. You can find a way. But then you have the other side, is you have to find an employer willing to hire a student for 10 hours a week. But I think just to open somebody's mind to say this could be a win-win situation for the student as well as the employer, because a lot of students, particularly non-traditional students, think that they don't have time to do this, or they have to give up a better paying job to do this internship. And that's not the case. They could even do it. I would hate for the student to work without pay, but sometimes that experience it justifies working without pay.
Say that like some of my students have those concerns, like maybe the internship doesn't pay, or they think that it might have too many hours or something like that. And so like, thankfully, a lot of people in journalism, it's not as much for PR, but in journalism, that's how we learn it's on the job, because every television station, every newspaper, every radio station is really different in how they function. And so I will just, if somebody's kind of concerned and they're not really sure if that's really what they want to do, or that they'll have the time or something like that, I'll have them meet with the person that they might be interning with beforehand, before going through the paperwork. Maybe have them shadow that person for a day. And that seems to resolve a lot of the concerns that they have in that sense. Sure, like some of them, they have to have a paid internship, because like whatever they're doing outside of their school hours has to be paid. And I'll do my best to find them something that is paid. Thankfully, more positions like that are starting to happen. But yeah, it's kind of, I try and handle students' concerns when they come to me, because it's often very individual what they need, and how I can resolve that problem for them.
Gilbert, did you have anything to add on that?
I was going to say that, we do have, when I use the word traditional student, that means a student who is not a prior classroom teacher. So they're going through the pipeline. But we also have students, both undergrad and graduate, who are currently holding conditional teaching certificates pending completion of a program. And so again, making certain that we adhere with state certification requirements, we'll look to see what's their teaching environment and does it coincide with the requirements. If, for example, we have a student that's working in a pre-K environment, well, that's not going to be enough. They also have to have experience kindergarten through third grade to sixth grade. And so, you know, as several have indicated on the call, ideally, you know, we would want that to be a paid situation, but that's not going to be the case, you know. And we explain that. That's part of our upfront, our advanced conversations with our prospective interns, is that for a period of time, which is an entire semester, where that student is embedded in that school the entire semester from approximately 8 a.m. till 3 p.m. So it's a, you know, it's a little bit different as well. But, you know, we try, if it's doable, in line with state, you know, certification, because, you know, we want to make certain that when that student graduates, you know, they have met all licensing requirement. It would not be a good thing, excuse my language, it would not be a good outcome if the student is at the end of their road and they have not done what, and it was because, you know, we didn't plan it, but when I came through, I already had a master's in public administration. I was thinking I was going to go the route of civil service coming out of the Air Force, changed my mind, decided to become an educator. So I completed all my coursework while I was active duty Air Force, including deployments. I had to time my honorable discharge so I could complete my internship. You can't do internship when you're active duty. I'm sorry, but you can't do it. You got to be. And so I just timed it, and of course it was not paid. You know, but
I'm sure it wasn't easy, but you succeeded and you did it. And
Yeah.
that's the stuff that we need to make sure that students know, is that it might be
Yeah.
something that it's a little bit of a difficult road for a minute, but it's a way to get your name out there, get yourself exposed to an employer, exposed to your field, and the value definitely outweighs that uncomfortableness for a short period of time. Speaking of time, we only have about 6 minutes left. So I want to open it up to Bethany Mabs or Dr. Sterling to see if you guys have any questions for our wonderful panelists before we go to our last question.
I have a few questions. First, how do you get the students interested in doing internship? Because in English and philosophy, we have more internships than we have students who are interested. I mean, is this something done during advising, or does a professor approach a student after a class, or how do you do that? How do you get the students interested?
We preach jobs. It's the game. It's not only, it's your career path. I mean, for us, we have the benefit in accounting of kind of a defined career path, but you know, we kind of bring it along, and the students pass along from year to year, but it's the road to a job, and plus deciding what you want to do. It's for a lot of them, it's almost a relief in the sense of they can decide whether they like this or not, which I imagine it must be for the teachers also, of getting out in the classroom and being live must be a big step for them.
I was going to say, Eric, that in my role, which is kind of whole college, I have students who we have a student of the month program in the College of Business, and every student of the month, most of them, I ask them if they've had an internship. I promote it that way. And so I let the students talk to the students about the internship. So I feature the student who has had the internship, and I have readership in this newsletter, and that has sparked interest in internships. I beat it like a drum, okay? Every time I have an opportunity, I say internship, and I have had in my 1 year in this role, an uptick in interest. I offer that. Just promote it and let students do the promotion.
Thank you.
You know,
Any other questions? Go
I,
ahead.
just a quick note, and that's that term, collegiality. Collegiality is not just amongst faculty, it's also students. And as was indicated, that interns, now talking with our practicum students, now talking with our method students. So there is a professional learning community. And like everyone else on the call, we foster those PLCs, professional learning communities, because our interns are going to need it to survive, to be successful. Those PLCs, you know, military taught me a lot of abbreviations. PLCs, those professional learning communities, are essential, not only for survival, but for success. And who do I turn to when I have questions about, you know, English learners? Who do I turn to when I have questions about displaced families? And the list goes on. So I just, you know, I believe in that communication amongst all of us in these professional learning communities is a hallmark
Mhm.
for the long term.
Eric, did you have any other questions?
Yeah. We've had several people who are interested, but they say that because of their financial situation, they need to make money for tuition or pay rent. And so they would only be interested in a paid internship. Pretty much none of ours are paid. Like our main internship is with a publishing house, and they're barely surviving. Publishing is not, it's not a very lucrative thing in many cases. So how do you get them to be paid internships? You know, I think we would lose some of our internships if they had to pay somebody.
So like with our field, yeah, like working at the television station, those aren't paid internships and they never will be, because those stations don't actually make a whole lot of money. They don't even pay their employees very well. So if a student absolutely has to have a paid internship, I will usually try and find them something that is in a field that is paid. So like for English, I would guess, yeah, working for a publishing company may not be a good paid internship opportunity, but maybe doing writing for technical writing type internships might pay something, or you know, technology writing, stuff like that. Basically, I try and look for my students just something that is likely to pay, which is hard. It's hard for the journalism students because most of those positions don't, like, even once they get the job, they're not getting paid very much. And I explain that to them ahead of time. I'm like, look, if that's really the field that you're interested in, you should know that the job isn't going to pay that much even once you're there working full time. So like if you are, you know, have these income needs, you might want to consider some of these other fields that are similar, but would make you the wage that you're expecting or that you need to support yourself. And then I can usually find them a paid internship in that field if they need.
Thank you.
One other option too is that we do have that 1 hour tuition internship scholarship that the provost and the EEC offer for internships that aren't attached to a degree specifically. So if it's something additional so that they can get some experience and learn something more about that field, we pay that 1 hour tuition, and that would be enough for them to get in there and you know, assist and not have to pay anything additional for
I
tuition.
have done that. So I've talked with the employer, and so if the student wants to do an unpaid internship and doesn't want to have to pay for the credit, we'll just enroll the student for that one credit rather than the 3 that they would usually take, and then they don't have to pay for the credit, but they still get the experience that they were wanting.
It's better than nothing,
Yeah.
definitely.
It helps because a lot of internships now require, like, especially for the bigger corporations, they require that the student be enrolled in some sort of internship credit to do the internship. And it helps us satisfy that goal without putting an additional burden on our students.
That's an interesting point, Hillary. I didn't even think about that some employers are doing that now, just to make sure that they are getting a student that's actually gonna perform in that position instead of just ghosting on them.
If they're not going to pay, they have to have it be an academic experience. If it's an international student, they have to have an academic experience. So sometimes you have those. I've had one unpaid internship in accounting. It was a kid who wanted to be an accountant on a movie shoot, and the movie people don't pay anybody. So, but he wanted to do it, so he did it as a one credit internship, which it worked out. He met Paul Newman, I think, it was about
That's
20
cool.
years ago.
All right, so we're a little bit over. If you guys don't mind, I just have one real quick question and then I will say thank you. All right. So I'm a faculty member and I'm going to plan on starting an internship course. What is your real quick sage advice to me before I get involved in that endeavor? Whoever wants to go.
Do me a favor, please. Can you restate the question, please?
Sure. What's your sage advice to a faculty member that is wanting to start an internship course before they get involved in it? What would you give them as advice?
Okay. CH word. Be a champion. Be a champion for your interns. That's got to be it. That's got to be it. You've got to be willing to be a champion for your interns. That's my input.
I like it. Go ahead.
Just do it. I'll borrow Nike. Seriously, it's not going to be perfect. It's just when you start anything, it's not perfect. Just do it and know that you have colleagues around the university who will support you and grow into it. The important thing is to do it.
Agreed. It just becomes a kind of being in the middle and finding that nexus where you can match people up to situations and kind of develop on all of those ties all the way around. It kind of is a fun thing once you get it rolling. But I just remember there's no I in team, but there is an I in internship. Somebody's got to do it.
Hillary, what's your advice?
I guess it would just be to, be prepared for a lot of different things to happen, things that you don't expect. You're going to have a lot of interesting questions, a lot of interesting experiences, and be real with your students when you're explaining the expectations and what they're getting themselves into. Don't hype it up too much. Just tell them this is what it is and this is why we're doing it and that sort of thing.
It's perfect. Well, thank you guys all very much for being here and taking time out of your day to talk to us about what you've been doing and how somebody else could be just as successful ultimately as you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Brenda.
Adios. Adios.
Thank you.
All right, bye. We're not recording anymore. You guys are awesome. Thank you again for
Okay.
doing this.
All right. Take care.
All right, have a great day. Have
All
a
right.
good
You
good
too.
week. Thank you.